Timeless Beauty is a quilt featuring the Time After Time fabric collection from Northcott. It is made with the Time After Time panel and the Time After Time border stripe. Piecing it together is easy. Now, how will you quilt it? I'm Kathy Wiley, and in this tutorial, we will talk about how to quilt Timeless Beauty, including outline quilting connected shapes, outline quilting closely spaced shapes, quilting the flowers, quilting motifs, adding lines, and quilting background fill. The Time After Time fabric collection was inspired by my quilt for such a time as this, which used turned edge applique to portray time with monthly birth flowers and birthstones. Timeless Beauty essentially reproduces this quilt, so I thought I would quilt it in a similar way to the original. Let's get started. To reinforce the look of applique, the first thing we want to do is outline quilt all the shapes. I used smoke invisible monofilament thread in a size 7010 Microtex needle and black bottom line polyester thread in the bobbin for outline quilting the connected shapes. I switched to clear invisible monofilament thread to quilt the petals of the lighter colored flowers. Here's an example of a group of connected shapes. If we outline quilted around the outside edge of the group, we would end up with a lot of unquilted interior lines that we would have to go back and fill in. I prefer to quilt each shape as I go, and here's how. Begin quilting around the outside edge of the group. When you reach a connected shape, quilt the connecting line and then outline the shape. Quilt over the connecting line again and continue until you reach the next shape. Continue until the whole group has been quilted. Watch how this group of connected shapes would be outline quilted. This method of double quilting over some of the lines will save you considerable time and stops and starts. There are four main groups of closely spaced shapes: the beads, the leaf and berry motifs, the red flowers, and the leaves on the corner branches. Rather than outline quilt closely spaced shapes individually, continue the quilting line from one shape to the next. For the beads, try quilting a small circle between each printed circle. Working in a figure-8 fashion, quilt half a printed circle, the opposite half of a background circle, half a printed circle, and so on, until returning back to stitch the other halves. For the leaf and berry motifs, outline quilt the center leaf. Then return to the base to quilt the leaf on the right then the leaf on the left. Quilt the circles in a figure-8 fashion. Half the gold circle, the red circle, the other half of the gold circle, and then back again to reach the top of the next leaf. This way, all the leaf and berry motifs in a row can be outline quilted in one pass, again saving time and reducing the number of stops and starts. For the red flowers, outline quilt the inner gold circle. Then follow around the edges of the 4 red petal shapes. For the leaves on the corner branches, continue the quilting line from the branch to a leaf, and from leaf to leaf without stopping and starting. The flowers are groups of connected shapes of petals and leaves. Some of them have an obvious distinction between each petal, like these violets, whereas the edges of the white primrose petals are harder to discern. I used a purple air erasable fabric pen to draw in these gladiolus petals and these marigold petals. This made it much easier to quilt the interior petals of the flowers. There aren't a lot of wide open spaces in Timeless Beauty for quilting motifs, but I did find 2. The very center of the quilt and the space above each flower between the birthstones. In the center, I quilted a 6-pointed flower shape and designed this swirly motif to fill the space above the flowers. Both of these motifs are available for you to download and print if you would like to use them. To mark the motifs on the quilt, I used a light box and traced them with a white iron-out fabric marker. I quilted the motifs with black Aurifil 50-weight 2-ply cotton thread in the needle and black bottom-line polyester thread in the bobbin. Adding lines helps reinforce the shapes implied by the leaf and berry motifs and defines the boundaries for quilting a background fill. In the corners, I added curvy lines, picking up from the blue swirls and sweeping into the corner of the borders. These lines are available for you to download and print if you would like to use them. To add lines around the leaf and berry motifs, I used a flexible curve ruler to follow the edges of the leaves and a white iron-out fabric marker to mark the line. I drew a line on either side of the leaf and berry motifs on the panel to emphasize the shape of the circle, and drew a line on the outer side of the leaf and berry motifs in the border, connecting to the curvy lines in the corners. These lines create a negative space between the medallion and the border, perfect for quilting a background fill. You can choose any background fill you like. I opted for a 1/2-inch diagonal grid and used a stencil to mark it on the fabric. I used black bottom line polyester thread in the needle and the bobbin. The gridded background fill provides visual texture and a resting place between the printed motifs. There is definitely room for quilting more background fills if you have the time or inclination. You could add stippling around the flowers and leaves, OGs above the birthstones, matchstick quilting in the borders, whatever you like. Quilting brings a quilt to life. Whether you follow this tutorial or quilt it your own way, I hope you enjoy timeless beauty for many years to come.